Good afternoon, everyone. I am Vartika Rawat, correspondent at ETCFO. My ETCFO team is here with me today to bring to you this webinar this afternoon. They join me in thanking all of you for tuning in today. For those of you who are new to the ETCFO webinar series, this is the 9th episode of the webinar from our side. Our earlier discussions centered around issues that matter to the finance community. The most recent one was on Corporate Governance 2.0, where the veteran finance expert Shailesh Haribhakti joined us. Some previous ones have been on blockchain, data protection, GST, and the relationship between auditors and CFO. Coming back to the present, the winter season is fading away. Delhi NCR is mostly sunny. There are no clouds in the sky, but in our conversation today. This afternoon's ETCFO webinar is on reaching new heights with next generation cloud. The shift to the cloud has been a game changer for nearly every industry, business and professional. Yet many CFOs are still skeptical about embracing cloud technology due to their perceived concerns related to application system integration, data security, regulatory compliance, and so on. The webinar will discuss some of the major challenges CFOs face in adopting cloud systems and technologies and how best to address them. The session will also cover how businesses can reach new heights with next generation cloud. As we have various finance leaders joining us from across the country, we hope that today's session is profitable to you and helps you prepare for the year ahead. And in doing so, we have two outstanding speakers who between them bring experience, expertise, and insights. Please join me in welcoming Arjun Vaidyanathan, CFO and Partner, Corporate Services, KPMG India, and Steve Cox, Group Vice President, ERP and EPM Product Marketing, Oracle. We will have a short opening statement by each of the speakers, followed by an interactive session. The participants are requested to send us questions on the private chat window to us. In the interest of using time productively, we will collate them and present them to the speakers. Also, just a heads up for you all, we will be conducting live poll during the webinar. Request you to please answer it for an engaging, better, and productive conversation ahead. Let's start with Mr. Vaidyanathan on reaching new heights with next generation cloud. Let's talk. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Vartika. Thank you for that introduction, and good afternoon to everybody who are joining from this part of the world. Before we get into this whole topic about reaching new heights, sorry, I lost the link. Sorry. Before we get into this whole talk about reaching new heights and talking about next generation cloud, let's understand what this cloud technology is all about. Because I don't know, many of us in our community would have kind of gone ahead and done what is required to be done to be on the cloud. Some of us are on a 50-50 basis, saying that something is not on the cloud, something is on the cloud. Some of us have gone completely on the cloud. So there are different varying parameters, and in that spectrum of full implementation to no implementation, many of us are in that journey at this point in time. So just to be a little bit more grounded and a little bit more basic, what is this all cloud computing is all about? What is cloud technology you're talking about? Okay, let's understand that a little bit. It basically allows us to use digital resources in a virtual space by way of networks. Now, when we actually do this digital space and networks, effectively what we are saying is we use hardware and software to deliver a service over a network. Now, many people have asked us, what's so different about it? Today also I'm using hardware, today also I'm using software, today also the same data, whatever services is being delivered over a network. So what happens is that there is a slight differentiation. If all of us use Gmail, Gmail is actually on the cloud. We don't own the server, we don't have it. So if I were to kind of look at it from an organization's point of view today, you have cloud computing over a cloud computing platform that is in the office today. That means it is a private cloud effectively in the same platform. Like all of us are connected through virtual, through the lease lines and the satellite networks to our different branches offices. We share data, we share emails, we share conversations, etc. That's within that private network, and the servers and the data which actually manages behind that, and the software which does this is within our control. That means it is in the premises. If something goes wrong, somebody can walk across and do all the things that is required to be done. If all of us who have kind of started up with new offices, etc., you will have your CIO say that I need a server room with certain design and capability, etc. types. Now, that is basically our own private cloud, same platform. It is implemented within the corporate firewalls under the control of the IT organization, which is there in the company. Now, if you actually look at it from a cloud point of view, it is basically, it is outside the control of the organization. It is in a third-party service provider with a different set of infrastructure, which is not directly in the cloud, within the control of the organization. It's a sea of difference between the way it needs to work. Now, having said that, it kind of puts in a bit of a quandary, right? Today, we are all used to having good control. If somebody were to ask in terms of what's happening and how are things going on, we are able to give a quick answer. But if it is in the cloud, it's not in our control. So we have to kind of talk to somebody else. We've got to figure out how things happen and then come and have that control over the data. Now, while it kind of seems quite logical, saying that, okay, it's just outside, it's not within our control, etc. What happens to the data? What is the data privacy and data related risks which are there? How do we deal with regulatory related agencies who says that it has to be in-house, it has to be available at a beck and call? Not that the cloud data is not available on beck and call. It is available on beck and call. It is available for you to use whenever you need it. But there are certain risks and there are certain issues surrounding that. So while we go on that journey of the risks surrounding that, what happens is many of us still today are a bit skeptical about it. Why are we skeptical? Precisely the reason that we don't know how the data is being managed and how the data is being controlled. Why? Because this going into a cloud or into a next generation cloud or into a basic service is essentially a transformative technology, and any such transformative technology comes with its own challenges, and cloud is no exception to that rule. As workloads move to the cloud, several things come into play. Cost comes into play. You may not incur hardware costs, you may not have hardware acquisition costs, but it actually has a different set of costs. The implementation is slightly more long term. You need basically a good cloud service provider. You need some good solutions to control the data and for management of the data. You need migration of the legacy systems into the cloud so that you don't lose some of the parts and bits of the pieces. And more importantly, and the most critical aspect of this, the people in the organization need to get used to this new way of working. And it's akin to something like your payment mechanisms, the payment systems which you use, the digital payment mechanism. Previously we were used to cash, then credit cards came, now debit cards have come, then debit cards came, and then we went into this UPI, into this Paytms, and into Google Pay, into any other form of payment mechanisms which are there. The evolution of that puts it into a very different trajectory actually. What happens? Previously your credit card was with you, but now the credit card information is there in Amazon.com. It is there in Google Pay. It is there in Paytm. Now, how do we manage the risk? We need to kind of, first today in these kind of payment mechanisms, we need to rely on the security protocols of that particular service provider. It should be safe and nothing should happen. Similarly, when we are starting to look at it from a cloud point of view, we need to be sure that the service provider is okay and they have enough risk checks and balances over there so that the data over there is safe, it is risk free, it is available to you whenever you want, both from a regulatory point of view and from a business point of view. Now in this whole bargain, the typical question that comes to us as CFOs and CIOs, etc., is what is the rate of return? What is the rate of what I would say payback period? Am I going to, I used to invest a lot of money previously in the servers and the networks, etc. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but not with me. I don't own physical assets, it's with somebody else, but I'm paying a slightly more price or a differentiated price for a service. So effectively data center as a service comes into play. Then how do you justify the rate of return and how do you justify the investment philosophy of an organization? And more importantly, how do you justify to your senior management who's still not comfortable with cloud data being on the cloud? Okay, so effectively what couple of things come into play is like there's a huge amount of education that is required within the organization, more especially if you are a listed entity, then the audit committees, the risk committees, the information technology committee, you need to have proper guidance mechanisms to kind of, I would, for want of any other words, I would use the word education to say that, look, this is good, this can happen, and this is safe. This is basically what I would say in the long term, when you actually take into consideration a 3 to 5 year horizon, it is actually beneficial to the organization. It will be financially also viable. Now, when I say 3 to 5 years, you're talking about investments being done now, but technology also changes. So as you looked at a point in time, data centers are the big ones which are being talked about, but now it is slightly more evolved. The technology has evolved, the server capacities and everything has kind of evolved. So that also kind of puts into play saying that, look, the cost which you incur today, you may have to relook at it tomorrow. So the rate of interest or the rate of return, etc., undergoes a change almost on an annual basis whenever we do our reporting kind of a mechanism. So with that kind of a focus, there are several questions which come into play. What are the risks? What are the issues? How do we deal with it? What are the costs of implementing it? And is it beneficial, not beneficial? Is compliance a big issue? Compliance is a big issue. Data privacy is a big issue. And if you kind of dovetail with the GDPR kind of requirements or HIPAA kind of requirements in the country, and even in India, we are not talking about data privacy related law coming into play, which is going to be far more stringent. Then how do we deal with that? Second thing, if the data is not in your control, then how do I lock it? So effectively, there are various mechanisms available for you to have a single gateway to the cloud, which is basically a locked pathway. Effectively, it's like your own road to the entire cloud and to the data. Those kind of mechanisms are available. Effectively, if you want to do that, then the whole point about who's your vendor, who's going to provide the service to you. Oracle does it, Google does it, Amazon does it, Microsoft does it. So many people do it. These are all the, I would say, top tier one players in this game. But there are several others who are there who can probably give you financial benefits. But is it secure or not secure? So when you evaluated this on the various parameters of privacy, security, access, cost, etc., those things need to kind of have a big, I would say, criteria from an evaluation point of view, especially from a risk and reporting point of view. Now, are the CFOs and all ready for this kind of a discussion? The answer is a yes and no. Some of us are like all gung ho and ready to do what is required to be done. Some of us are still in that journey to say that let's evaluate it, let's learn from the others, let's talk to the experts, be more cautious, etc. My two bits on it is that this kind of a technology is here to stay. It is not going away. It's not going to just turn around and say that oh, it's going to change because of risks, etc. Those will get resolved. For anything to do, even if you have an on-premises related servers, etc., from a data management point of view, those also have problems. Something crashes, something doesn't work, you have a downtime, you have latent time, all those things are there. But even this, the same problems will be there. But somebody needs we have to take a call on that, overcome it. In my view, I know I'm like relatively up on the 10 to 12 minutes of the time of the introduction, which I have before you hand it over to Steve, is that this is here to stay. And the faster you embrace it, the faster you bring the organization up to the speed on terms of saying that, okay, this is how we need to do. It's better for us. So with that kind of an introduction, I would stop because we do have time for question answers, and I can also explain to you what at KPMG we have done from a cloud migration, etc. point of view, because that's a question I presume will be there at a point in time. So with that introduction, I would hand it over back to Vartika and Steve to take it to the next level before we get into a question answer session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Very rightly said that this technology is here to stay, and businesses are becoming complex, and this is a transformative technology which comes with its own challenges. Very rightly put, sir. Steve, what do you think about this? What the pointers that Mr. Vaidyanathan has touched? I'm sure that you're going to touch upon those, and I hand it over to you, Steve.
Well, thank you, Vartika. Arjun makes some great points, and we'll probably cover data privacy in a little more detail when we have a question from the audience, because I know it's on everyone's mind. And I've just come back from Colombia, where data privacy is top of mind because of some recent problems there with a couple of providers. So I have a few slides, and I should introduce myself. My name is Steve Cox. I've been with Oracle over 20 years now, and I look after ERP and EPM product marketing. So I spend all of my time thinking about the issues that affect those people in the organization that look after finance and procurement, to a degree supply chain. I have a couple of slides that I'd like to go through, but you know, Arjun's right. The cloud's here, it's now the norm. My 84-year-old father-in-law can tell me more about the cloud than anyone, because he accepts it as a norm, that all of his music, all of his films, all of his photographs, every family memento is in the cloud. He picks up his phone and everything's there for him. So this cloud, it's pervasive, it's everywhere. So we should explore some of the impacts. So let's see if we can get this slide going, so that you know the title of what we're talking about this morning. And because I'm going to show you some futures, we show you a safe harbor statement. Now, to a degree, this is like the iTunes terms and conditions. Everyone clicks, I agree, and then for some unknown reason, we have to click, I agree again. You know, I would assume that everybody has read this screen, memorized it, just like you did with the 39 pages from Apple and iTunes. So I think what's happening today is we're seeing three major changes in business. The onset of economies of innovation. Now, for the last 20 to 30 years, we have talked about economies of scale. In theory, the larger you are, the more throughput you can have, the better your productivity, more money you earn, the better your profit margins. And we talk about economies of scope. Everyone remembers this debate around core and peripheral activities. Stick to what you know. You make decisions, sometimes not so much about what you will do, but what you will not do. Well, now we're in 2020, and for the next 20 years, it's going to be about economies of innovation. You have still got to have economies of scale. You've still got to be able to have this ability to handle throughput. You still have to have economies of scope. You have to decide what you will not do. But the next 10 years is all about economies of innovation. You have got to be braced for constant change. And as you can see from the second item here, you've actually got to outpace change. We used to talk about responsive organizations. Look, if you're a responsive organization, you are always going to be dependent on what just happened. Adaptive organizations, in contrast, anticipate what might happen, plan for it, and then take advantage of circumstances. And every organization, it does not matter what industry you are in today, will have to cope with multiple dynamic operating models. Just think of my own organization. We started it as a database company, then we became a database and applications company, then we became a database applications and middleware company, then we were database applications, middleware and hardware, and now we are a cloud company. And we have to maintain all of those business models. There is not a single organization out there that isn't thinking of selling what they have as a service. Last year, one of the major insurance companies in Europe launched insurance as a service. Everyone's been able to buy insurance on monthly payments, but now you can rent insurance. Now that's an example of multiple dynamic operating models. Every business has a code to it. You can call it the as a service economy. I don't think that's correct, but we've all got to look at what we do because we're all looking for new competitive advantage. Now with that, we have a poll to launch. So Vartika, Let's have the first poll.
All right, so our first poll question is, how would you identify your finance function in the organization? A, innovators, setting up models for the rest of the organization. B, wait and watch, follow innovations that worked for others. And third, tried and tested, go for implemented ideas before following. This poll is live for 30 seconds.
That's interesting. Are you ahead of the curve? Do you wait and see what happens, or do you follow others?
So we'll be ending the poll in a few seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So what do we have, Vartika?
So we have interesting results here, Steve. So almost 42% of the participants that we have are innovators. They're setting up models for rest of the organization. And 30% of them are saying that they are waiting and watching. They're following innovations that worked for others. And 28% participants are tried and tested, and they would like to go for implemented ideas before following. Over to you, Steve.
Arjun, what do you think of that?
My only humble submission to the 58% of the people who are in this wait and watch and follow, you don't have time, because what will happen is it will become very expensive at a point in time. Also, what will happen is you can't wait for it. It's like this. I would like to kind of explain this as an anecdote. A friend of mine bought a car and he put it in the garage, and he used to clean it every day and wash it every day and nicely shine it every day. And so once one of his friends and came, says, "It's a nice looking car. So when do you want to go for a spin?" He says, "No, I won't go for a spin right now, because I want all the roads to be nice and flat and all the signals to be green before I take the car out." Which means you're never going to take the car out. Simple as that. So taking that as an anecdote, I mean, yeah, you can wait forever. You can wait and watch what others are doing so that your cost comes down and you learn from everybody's mistakes. By the time you do it, the technology would have changed. Even your ERP would have changed multi-folds, and then the data migration, everything would become far more difficult. The volume of data is far more higher in another 2 years' time that you're dealing with. And right now, with the data being the so-called gold or the oil part of it, as data is being touted as that, it becomes far more difficult for you to actually analyze them and do the business. So my humble suggestion to the 58% of the pollsters, you're already late.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I'm comforted by the 42% that are ahead of the curve. But given India's dynamism, you know, India is renowned worldwide for being a dynamic economy. It is constantly growing, it's constantly changing. I'm a little bit concerned that 58%, and if you said to me, what is the hurry? There's a whole bunch of reasons which we should explore. So let's see if we can get this. This is what's going on right now. This is 2020 in a microcosm. Continuous seismic change, and you can see the brown really are technology driven changes, and the green are macro changes in our environment. So you can see one of the first green changes is deregulation. Now I could have written deregulation, regulation, and re-regulation. Mark Twain, one of the West's famous authors, said there's two things in life that are certainties, that's death and taxes. Well, I disagree. I think there's three certainties in life. That's death, taxes, and regulatory frameworks. Everything changes all the time. It doesn't matter what environment you're in. It doesn't matter what country you're in. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. It doesn't matter what public sector job you're in. Everything changes all the time. But if we look at the left-hand side, we buy things differently. We travel differently. Everyone has a mobile phone, if not two mobile phones, and we don't only use them for phone calls. Everyone and people like me, and I will just show you my wrists, I wear two wearables, so I track my own data. Populations in general are becoming younger. This is strange, but what is happening is this strange shift in demographics where the millennial generation will be the people that bear the costs as people of my generation enter retirement. You can see particularly we have geopolitical changes. We have Brexit, which may seem like a UK issue, but in fact, it's a global issue. And now recently, we are all aware of climate change. But just as you think all the technology changes are over, along comes a primary change in the technology scenario. That's 5G. Now, I won't spend a lot of time on 5G, but the major difference between 5G and everything that's gone before is for the first time, upload speeds and download speeds will be the same. Now, I will just share with you the country that has the fastest 5G to date, and this is still in test, is Turkey, where Turkcell have achieved 2.5 gigabytes. 4G gave us the ability to watch TV on our phones. Which of us doesn't watch the cricket when it's live on our mobile phone when we're on the bus or on the train? We don't really know what 5G is going to bring, but for the first time, if you have download speeds and upload speeds that are the same, true interactability will be available. So we'll give a boost to technologies like IoT, the Internet of Things, augmented reality and virtual reality, because you can see a scenario where 20 years of experience that exists in an organization in maybe 20% of the employees can be compressed and be available to someone with 6 months training in the field wearing a pair of goggles. So that's the kind of change we're seeing, and it's continuous. In fact, we're so used to it nowadays that we take change in our stride. You know, we get a little red mark on our phone that says something needs to be updated, and we go and do it, and we expect things to work straight away. And the problem with all of this is the average organization's ability to respond is actually declining. You can see the arc that indicates the pace of change, and it's almost vertical. But look at the constraints. Everyone's held back by their IT infrastructure, held back by the way they manage data. And just to exchange a couple of facts on that, the average organization's data worldwide is multiplying 2 times every year. If you've chosen to invest in the Internet of Things, you may find that your data is increased 50 times per year. You may be held back by your business processes. They are locked in stone because you had a system years and years and years ago that dictated how you would run your business, and everyone's got used to the shortcomings of that system and has adopted inefficiencies in the form of workarounds. There's the people and culture, and there's the operating model, which I've already talked about. So we're in this change-driven world, and the ability of the average organization is declining because of the technologies that I have. Now, many organizations, increasing amount every year, are doing something about it. And what they're doing is what I have on the screen now. Lots of text, so we won't go through everything, but they're looking to switch from on-premise and point solutions that may have been designed to cope with Y2K. You know, some of the systems were designed that long ago to a cloud suite. They're moving from a 5-year adoption cycle. And here, let me share with you, even though the vendors may say, well, a new version of our software is available every year, the problem with that is that the first year you had the software, it didn't do exactly what you needed. So you customized it. And when you customize it for the first time, you hindered the ability to take the next update. And the more customizations you add, the more impossible you make it. So what you really end up with is a scenario where you do not update your software because it takes so much time, it's so disruptive, it costs so much. Contrast that with the cloud, where you get new features every 90 days. There's a long requirements lag in the old software. In other words, you told the vendor you needed something, but it might have been years before it was there. Well, every 90 days, we're delivering you feedback, new features. Customizations, in my view, and I confess a bias, are the business killer. You do not want to do anything that harms your ability to take new features. So in the cloud, we eliminate customizations and replace them with the ability to configure it, the software, and add extensions with a platform layer. And lastly, security. Now we'll talk about security, but for many companies, security is as perfect as the last patch you applied. And the problem is globally, organizations are about 3 months behind applying patches. The majority of major data breaches have come about because humans have failed to apply patches. You contrast that in the cloud, and we as a vendor deliver that security to you. Every time there's a threat, we patch, and you don't even know it happens. So you have embassy-grade security. You can see the difference between what's gone before and the software that's available now. So with that, I think we have another poll, am I right?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
So the next poll question is, are you planning to upgrade your systems to the cloud? Yes, we will be upgrading soon. Second, not now. Third, maybe I have a few questions to ask. And D, we are on the cloud upgrade journey already. Again, you guys have 30 seconds to respond.
Vartiga, I'm hoping a lot of people say number 3 and number 1. Number 3 and number 1. Number 2 is a bad thing.
Not now.
Don't want anyone saying not now.
I think as Arjun earlier pointed out that, technology is changing really fast. And if you're not, we're missing out on a lot. So with that, I think it's just 2 seconds left and we're done with the poll. So we have the responses in front of us. 20% says yes, we will be upgrading soon. Surprisingly, and I think it's very good that 48% people say that we are on the cloud journey already. Not now, 14% people, and maybe I have a few questions to ask 18%, and that is why we are here today. So over to you, Steve.
Thank you. Well, this is the right place to ask those questions, and let's see if we can chisel away at that 14% whilst we're going through this presentation. So let's see if we can move on. Our argument is really only a new computing model can deliver what you need. A computing model covers every aspect of your business, from supply chain through to customer experience, human capital management, that's HR, enterprise performance management, and of course ERP. You need something that is designed for change. That is what's unique about Oracle. When we designed what we call Fusion, our cloud products, we designed them from the very start with change in mind. To that extent, as I said, we currently update our software every 90 days. We deliver it. You don't have to worry about security or maintenance or patching or tuning or performance. We can backups. It's all done for you. But we also built in this ability to use our platform as a service layer to extend what our software does. So when you create an extension which extends our functionality, it doesn't break when we update our software. If you create an integration with our platform as a service layer, it doesn't break when we update our software. It keeps going. That's why it's designed for change. It delivers a set of modern best practices, optimized digital business processes that are flexible, because if business is going through, and even the public sector is not immune from this, if we are going through so much change, not only do you need technology that changes with you, because your organization is changing. You need processes that change with you, because you're no longer constrained by processes that are tied to software design that might predate Y2K. And built for scale, you need the power of the cloud. The moment you start analyzing things, the moment you start extracting data, the moment you start manipulating data to build models, to explore what might happen if your biggest customer has financials problems, what might happen if there is a change in the geopolitical environment, what might happen if there is a new trade deal between the US and India tomorrow. You need the power to manipulate that data. You do not want something that, as you do your analysis, everybody else is stuck with a system that is slow because it's hurting the performance. So you need something from Oracle that's designed for change and built for scale. So we should talk now. Oh, Arjun's got something, sorry.
I just wanted to kind of add into what you just said. I just want to give an example today. Today, when we talk to customers, okay, we had various solutions as KPMG also. When we talk to customers to say that, do you need an ERP or do you need a supply chain solution? It is not a point solution that is being talked about. Today, when we need to talk to a customer, we are saying that, look, you need to look at it on an end-to-end basis. Today, when I'm talking to a customer, it is no longer just their product. They are saying, where is the digital part of it? Where is the, what I would say, how do we kind of manage my supply chain? How do I manage my customer experience? All those comes into play. Now, imagine if if you're KPMG and you had these various P&Ls and we used to manage it on an individual solution basis. But now the customer is looking at it on an integrated basis, and I, on the back end, I'm following this individual P&Ls. Will I be able to evaluate the business model, how it is changing, if my ERP system is constrained in a manner that I'm not able to kind of take one, quickly merge it to the other, take one of the business, merge it to the other, and look at how the system, how the performance of that particular business is. I'm looking at it from my point of view. Okay, this is so if you're on the cloud and if you have the system in place, this becomes easy. This becomes far more easier to do it, rather than saying that, oh, if I merge this, my last 4 years data I have to take and manually enter it, or do a kind of a bit of a patchwork to migrate it to do my comparatives. Just imagine large companies, quarterly reportings need to happen, monthly, weekly reportings need to happen, and suddenly the business model changes and you merge 4 businesses into 3 businesses, make it into one vertical. Imagine comparatives, imagine financial reporting, imagine EPS calculations. Everything will need to be done in a very different way. But if you have a proper system in place, and if it is on the cloud and the data migration is easy, this whole reporting mechanism and evolution and adapting to the market, adapting your business model to the customer needs becomes far more easier.
I think, Arjun, you've highlighted the folly of the early years of the new millennium when everyone talked about best of breed. I confess a bias. I really don't hold with this argument. When you talk to the CIO who says, on average, I'm managing 24 systems and there are 100 other SaaS products that we're using, that is not best of breed. Right. When you look at an organization, we all work for organizations. These bodies, supply chain and HR and finance, they're not silos. They're all part of the same whole. When we silo data, when we interrupt data flow, we add inefficiency to the business. There is a cost to having multiple definitions of key data across the organization. Let me just give you an example. I've had conversations with organizations that said, we're going to have a separate system for HR, an HCM system that we are to ERP. And then the argument goes, well, okay, but every time there is a change within the organization, that will affect finance. Every time there's a change in the HR structure, that affects finance. If tomorrow Arjun becomes global CFO, Arjun needs all of the access, all of the privileges that the global CFO requires to do that job. At the same time, immediately, Arjun's replacement needs all of his current privileges. If we have a smaller change further down the line, if we have someone who's buying things and the approver for some reason is off sick, which the HR system knows, you do not want to delay or interrupt the supply chain simply because the HR system and the supply chain system and the finance system don't talk to each other. You need a suite. This is the fundamental argument. And as you can see on the screen here, you need a suite that includes these emerging technologies. These emerging technologies, the Internet of Things, we have artificial intelligence, machine learning, and blockchain. These aren't magic. These aren't even particularly new. We in our organization, working with organizations like Arjun's, are already bringing them to our customers. So let's have a look at how this might affect you. So emerging technologies, this combination of cloud and mobile and analytics and social and big data and the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence, machine learning, augmented reality and virtual reality and the blockchain will impact your business. They're already impacting the business now, but their principal impacts will be to improve decision making. Once you harness this, you'll be able to make faster and better decisions. You can simplify business processes. You can automate more than is ever before. Now, automation isn't just about improving productivity. It's about doing things more accurately, more effectively. You can manage risk better, and you can optimize the use of your assets. So before we go into that, I mean, look, we always use processes in our organizations as a metaphor. It's a way of understanding the impact of technology. Now, this is period close. Now, you can see right at the top level, it looks fairly simple. So you have 8 steps: record, reconcile, post entries, report, analyze, understand, report, and decide. But then you see the mess that's underneath it. Now, this could be any business process. I've chosen period close because it's the benchmark. It's the one that I'm sure, Arjun, you enjoy so much every month. It's the one where everyone in the organization is working until 9 o'clock Friday night just to get the month-end reports in, and then they come in 6 a.m. Saturday morning to finish it off. Because what's happening, these lines underneath, that's supposed to be data flow, but it's not flowing. In some cases, it's not even trickling. Globally, best performing companies say that the average is 4.8 days for period close. In 2020, that's ridiculous, especially when I talk to the CFOs and I say to them, how many people in accounting are involved in period close? And they say, well, just about everybody. This is pernicious. We have to make changes. And with that, let me show you what could be the case if you as a customer deployed Oracle this afternoon. So this is period close to financial reports. And you can see we've optimized it. You can do it in the cloud. Almost every step can be done on a mobile phone or a tablet or desktop. Every step is driven by analytics. And if you need to interact, you can use a secure social network. You can use Slack, Microsoft Teams, our own social network. Really clean. 8 steps. You close your subledgers. You do a pro forma close just to shake out any problems. You do reconciliation. You close your ledgers. Consolidate subsidiaries, the fun job that everyone likes, particularly in a conglomerate or a larger company. You review your reports and then you share them. This is pretty solid, sound process that you could execute in our product today if you were live. But in one of the books I've written, and this book was only recently released, it's available from oracle.com, I've made a prediction as where period close is going. This is where period close is going. So my argument, my personal view is 4.8 days, as you heard, I think it's ridiculous. I can't see why it can't be 4.8 hours, regardless of the complexity or size of the business. Why it couldn't even be 4.8 minutes, because we shift period close from an event to just a process. The system is continually making efforts to close the books, and every time it finds an anomaly, it brings it to the human. And it brings it to the human with some suggestions to how to resolve it. And not only do those suggestions appear, the implications of those suggestions are shown. And the human can follow the suggestions. And those suggestions are based on how the system is being used, the business rules of the organization, by the compliance policies that are necessary due to the regulatory framework, and they may even be subject to approval. So you control how human beings react and interact with recommendations. Think of this, when you start using Facebook and you click like, immediately the algorithm goes in and starts recommending things to you. If you use Amazon or Flipkart, it does the same thing. The moment you purchase something, it makes assumptions about you based on algorithms. So we're doing the same here with enterprise software. But the business has ultimate control. The human beings focus all of their efforts on the middle bit. So you're imagining a scenario where instead of just waiting and chasing for information, which is probably 80% of the period close process, everyone in the organization, from the CEO to the people at the front line, have all the information they need to do their job. Now, we're not talking about giving everybody everything, because of course at each level, people can see a certain amount of information. But you never have to chase and wait for information because it's presented to you, and it's presented to you in context. So the human beings focus their effort on the middle bit, managing exceptions and reviews. And as you process those exceptions, as you process those anomalies, it remembers. And the next time that anomaly comes up, it says, the last time you had this anomaly, you did this. Do you want to do the same again? And if you say yes, because you are still presented with all the financial implications, it says, do you want me to automate this? Now, again, each of those decisions can be subject to approval because you want that control. And then you close and securely publish. So we're talking about collapsing process time, speeding up transactions, giving everyone the data they need, the information they need at the time they need it, and freeing the human beings in the organization, giving them time to do their job. So if you want to make faster, better decisions, if you want to achieve the mission, the vision of the organization, you need time to do so. This is the one finite resource, time. And this is what this does. It gives the organization back the time it needs. Now, I think we have one last poll. Am I right, Vartika?
Exactly, sir. So the last poll is that if you are on the cloud upgrade journey, what is the biggest challenge that you are facing? A, upgrades are a big challenge. B, managing spends. C, security is a constant problem. D, managing multiple clouds. And D, compliance is a pain. Again, you have 30 seconds. I think Arjun also pointed out a lot of these as challenges at the starting of in his opening speech. We just have 5 seconds left.
So what do we have?
All right. Yes. So we have some interesting responses. 20% 26% of the people say that managing multiple cloud is a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And 24% of the people say security is a constant problem. I think we're receiving a lot of questions, and there also we have a lot of questions on security. 22% says upgrades are a big challenge. Then 17% says managing spends, and 11% of the participants feel that compliance is a pain. All right,
Okay.
Steve, what do you think?
Nicely spread.
Arjun. Arjun is smiling.
Not surprised. Not surprised.
No me. I think it's evenly spread. I think the one surprise is compliance. I'm guessing with data protection regulation, that compliance thing is going to rise. It's certainly true for other territories around the world. So with that, I'm going to return to the presentation. Okay, so Arjun and I have a call to action. Now, those of you with mobile phones, if you have your cameras, you should be able to just scan these QR codes in here. So there's a couple of books from Oracle that you can read and get an idea both of what processes you could adopt today if you have our software and the services from Arjun's organization, and if you change your processes, and where processes are likely to go in the future. So we believe together that really why you should choose Oracle, why you should choose SaaS, and why you should now come back to 5 things. You have to make your organization future ready. I am never going to use the words future proof because no one can make your organization future proof. We do not know what the future holds, but we can make your organization together with you ready for any future that comes along. Build a lasting technology foundation. Do not settle for a prettier, newer straitjacket. Don't go leaping to a newer version of older software because it's not going to help you. Yeah, you will get up to date, but the last time you'll be up to date is the day you go live on the older generation software. Moving to the new generation, this next generation of software means you're always up to date. Can you imagine what it's like for the accounting function alone to always have up-to-date software? In fact, the accounting function could have the best software in the organization. The business value is compelling. Nucleus point out that the return on investment in cloud ERP alone is 3.2 times that of on-premise ERP. Nucleus equally say, in terms of the economic benefits, that cloud ERP has a total cost of ownership that's 52% cheaper than on-premise software. And Oracle, together with our partners, make the move easy. We have focused our entire organization in making the transition from where you are now to where you need to be. Not only to make it sure it's done at your pace, but to make it simple and easy. To innovate without disrupting. That's the key thing. Nobody should have to disrupt their business to adopt a new ERP or EPM system or HCM or customer experience or supply chain. So I think that is it. Arjun, any closing remarks from you?
Actually, no, I would wait for if you have some time, I would love to take some questions if somebody has anything, because as we concluded on that particular last poll, there are several issues which are there. Each of those issues is a topic by itself. Okay, each of those issues has got sub-issues within this to deal with it. So it's not as if one can give answers to all those things right now, but I would love to hear some questions or comments from the audience if time permits.
Exactly, Arjun. I think each of the last options that were given are topics in itself, and we can have a lot of discussion on that. But we are short on time, and we actually have a lot of questions. So, starting with the first question that somebody has asked is that there are multiple security gaps in the cloud environment, And
Mhm.
that might be critical factor for organizations to adopt this cloud technology. So how are we going to overcome the security gaps, challenges for cloud environment, and how soon it would be fixed? What all precautionary measures any organization should take before and after moving to cloud environment?
Wow. Can I take that one, Arjun?
Please do. There's a lot of questions in there. So
Yeah. Well, I'm going to dispute that. I think that I'm not so sure that's so. But I can only talk from my own organization's perspective. There is no comparison between security in the on-premise world, the previous generation software, and the security in the cloud world. Security in the on-premise world is dictated by your last patch. If organizations are 3 months behind and you have a gap, a threat gap, if you like, between applying the patch that solves the problem and being impervious to any threat. In the cloud, at least in the Oracle cloud, it doesn't happen. Every time there's a threat, we fix it. So if you have that problem, I'd recommend that you talk to Oracle. We can help you even on multi-cloud discussions, because there are ways. And within the Oracle cloud, the other thing is everything is encrypted. The only people that can see your data work for you are employees who have that privilege. So we encrypt. So we address the problem not only by including security at the data center level, at the chipset level within our hardware, at the operating system level, at the database level, at the middleware level, at the application level. So it's physical network and software and hardware security built in. So not only do we have it through the entire stack, the data is encrypted. So think of it this way. If you find that you have a security problem, I would argue the best person to talk to is pick up the phone and talk to Arjun and myself, and we can guide you. Now, if you are in India, put in a call to Oracle, because any of our Oracle reps, any of our Oracle digital team who are on the phones can help you around this maze that's security. Now, that's separate a little bit from data privacy, which I think, Vartika, you said we had a question on.
So just to supplement what Steve has said, security is the question is absolutely valid. It is a cause of concern. Everybody doesn't know what will happen. How do we ensure it is fully within the system that is holding it? How do you know somebody is not kind of hacked into it and taken away everything that is there over there, because you don't know, because you're not physically controlling it. So there are several steps one can take. But a couple of things which I would suggest is definitely what Steve said about encryption and all those things. But one thing which is very clear is ensure that the endpoint protections, what happens at your end and what happens at the cloud end. Okay, those endpoint protections are extremely clear. Who accesses the cloud account? So things like, user access, things like who has got what rights in your organization. Because what happens is many people move roles, but their rights don't change. So if you have those things all put in place, then you know who's accessing what data at every point in time. How do you access? How do you log in? What is the login protocols that you have set in place? Most important is what are the kind of devices you allow cloud to be accessed. So today people say, I want my data on the phone. You have a personal phone, you have an office phone. The office phone has got several encryptions and several things put into play, helpful. But iPhone, there are several things happen on the cloud. Several things which comes into the iPhone or into the Android phone through the cloud. There are several applications and apps people download on their own. And there are certain apps which are free and they look nice, etc. The gaming apps, especially what they access over the internet, etc. All those things will prove to be a security risk if you allow that particular device to be accessing to your cloud. Now, it may not happen overnight, but it will happen, it will manifest over a period of time. Essentially, then what happens is endpoint protection, encryptions, what happens in the instrument, what devices you allow, and what format you allow the access, etc., becomes very critical to protect from a security point of view. Obviously, all this comes at a cost. All this comes at a particular way of doing work. So it takes time and it takes money. and it takes effort.
I think, right. There's actually another question saying that, how to integrate then in that case, how to integrate data, permissions, privacy, compliance, and so on.
Well, that's interesting. So you need to think about identity management. That's the first thing. So you need a provider of identity management, and I know the best one. I could recommend one that begins with O. But you need to, but you also need to start off with this security mindset, so that everyone in the organization recognizes that data can be an asset and a liability. So everyone has to have this security mindset. It's no good within the organization having the best tools, but everyone has to recognize this is incredibly valuable. We had these old ideas in accounting that if you bought a company, you might buy them for goodwill. Well, nowadays companies are bought so much for the data that they control. So you have to have this security mindset. And as I said, I would be looking to start with identity management, and I would be talking to the organizations whose vision around security is the most advanced, bearing in mind that this has been part and parcel of my own organization's DNA since 1977.
I must mention that all our participants have been really engaging and have been there with us throughout. They have not dropped out or anything, and that's really a good sign that this conversation is going in the right direction. And because we're way past our time of the webinar, in the interest of the audience and the conversation, we're going to stretch it to 15 minutes. So I would request the speakers to keep their answers short and to the point. Also, the next question that I would go to is, and Arjun, please respond to this one. People who implement cloud technology don't know how to cope for the change and don't have answers for their customers. So what do you think on that?
Actually, I would disagree with that. It's like this. If you implement a few things, you need to know what's going wrong over there. Otherwise, you won't be able to provide the right solution. And if any of your solution providers are like that, it might be time for you to relook at who's providing the solution to you. If you get a good implementation partner, if you get absolutely a good service provider, both on your vendor on the cloud side and also on the implementation side, technically your problem should get resolved, unless and until it is of such a nature that it cannot be. But today, the problem is not with the technology, or problem is not with the implementation process or the implementation solution. The problem actually is with the people. Because of the technology changing on a regular basis, on almost like a daily basis, you don't have trained resources who can come and solve all the problems for you. So you expect things to happen, but they're also partly, I would say, like Steve said, your in-premises security is as good as the last patch you had. That means they are as good as the current technology is going on. But if what you're implementing, the problems which you have are different, then you might have a little bit of a delay in whatever it is. But I don't think that implementation partners don't know what to do. Sorry, I just lost the webinar. You're not there.
All right,
so I mean, Vartika, the big thing is you have to, as Arjun says, talk to the right implementation partners. And let's face it, implementation is not the way to think of this software. It's about adoption. So the right partner, and our relationship with KPMG and Arjun's organization goes back years and years and years. We work closely together in almost in synchronization. So I would recommend talk to what we describe as the right partner. They are expert at listening to your concerns, because that's the fundamental difference, I think, between the right partner and the wrong partner, is this ability to listen and understand your requirement and then address them using the right technology. And of course, we're a technology partner. We can provide you with the right technology.
Great. We would want to take more and more questions before we end this webinar. So one question that we have is this: what is the optimum ROI period? What should be the optimum ROI period, and what to to be expected post 100% cloud over on-premise. Did you get me, or should I repeat it?
Yeah, I did. Arjun, I could answer that one, but do you want to have a go first?
No, no, please go ahead, Steve, because I would love to hear what you have to say.
Okay, so this is based on our collective experience, because as I said, I personally have worked with KPMG for years and years and years. There is a German phrase, so I hope somebody on the call today speaks German. The German phrase is "Das kommt darauf an," which in English is "it depends." It depends on your organization, it depends on the pace at which you work, and it depends on your pattern of adoption. So if you start where I think you should start, where we've seen working with KPMG, many of our joint customers start, that is with our Enterprise Performance Management Suite, you can see a return on investment in a matter of months. Now that would be a partial return on investment. That return on investment, because immediately you deploy Enterprise Performance Management, Oracle Enterprise Performance Management is agnostic. It can work with anybody else's product. You can improve planning accuracy, and every 1% you improve planning accuracy, you can improve profit margins and bottom line costs. But it's not only planning and budgeting. So typically organizations start there. So you start to get control of the business. You start to get people used to working with cloud software for financials. So ROI can be a matter of months, but you have to think of ROI differently. You see continuing improvements. If you have this not only technology that gives you continuous innovation, but your ROI continues to improve, and it's based on your ability to harness that technology and to harness and develop processes that leverage that technology to the full. So saying that there's some kind of magical formula is difficult from my point of view. It depends on your organization, how we and KPMG can help you adjust mindset to greet this innovation. So we never talk about changing culture. You cannot and should not try to change organization culture, but you should certainly help the accounting function, all of the back office functions, supply chain and HR and IT develop an innovation mindset, the same innovation mindset that infests the rest of the business. You drive into these traditional back office functions, which probably are working on processes that haven't really changed for years and years and years. So depends on you. I mean, the technology will do hugely impressive things, but fundamentally you are going to have to think about mindset, processes, and policies. Get those right, and you'll see a better ROI. Arjun?
I would actually agree with you, Steve. I would actually put it in a very simplistic way. iPhone 11 has come now. iPhone 11 or 12 or whatever is going to come in a year's time. Are you going to change, or are you going to go for the old one? So there are some people like me who will probably change it once in 3 years or once in 4 years, because I'm okay, because my usage of that particular instrument or usage of the technology is there in my hands. I'm okay with that. But if you think that your usage of the phone or whatever it is at a different level, then you may want to go for the new technology. So the return of ROI on that is like, you use the new phone, you're happy with it in 3 months, damn, the ROI is there with it. For me, I'm fine. 3 years, ROI, I look at it over 3 years. So it's I'm putting it in very simplistic terms. So pardon me if I'm not able to give you a very technical answer of how to go about doing it. But we as finance professionals are all used to preparing Excel spreadsheets and using the NPR, because we need to satisfy the board, we need to satisfy the CEO, we need to satisfy a whole host of people to say why this investment is all valid, etc. types, which is good. Somebody needs to do that. At the same time, you need to work with the CIO very closely to ensure that, look, the direction in which the organization is going is forward and not backward. So you may take a slow steps, but the moment you kind of increase the width of your steps, you'll probably move a little bit more fast. I would like to put it in a very philosophical, conceptual stage like that, but it depends, I would say.
And I think if you want one more reason, I should Google China 2025. China's the world's biggest competitor of any developed economy. And if you look at China's focus on technology-driven innovation, technology-driven productivity. It's not scary, but the answer comes, if your biggest competitor is investing technology, doesn't it challenge you to do not just the same, but better?
Sure.
Participants also agree that it's a mindset change to adjust to the change. We'll just take this last question now before we finally close. So, in the most simplistic sense, cloud is someone else's computer, with the user not having the kind of control on-premise. How a cloud server, how a cloud service should provide how a cloud service provide can build and deliver assurance for it says how a cloud service provider can build and deliver assurance for customers to have that confidence so that they can host their most precious crown jewel on the cloud. Yes.
If I might want to take a quick answer to that, your most precious information, which is your personal data, is already there on the cloud. Your most precious information about your family photos, vacation photos, is already there on Facebook, Twitter, whichever you want to call it, Instagram, whatever it is. The most precious details about your date of birth, your driving license, everything is available today on the cloud. Today, even the government of India has come up with an app wherein all your data, which is your Aadhaar card, which is your driving license, which is your passport, everything is available on an e-wallet or equivalent. So how are we confident about that? How are we confident that that is not subject to misuse? The same level of confidence we need to have on your own corporate data. Now, it is just that, corporate data you could lose in personal thing. Somebody might kind of do something to you, use that information. Corporate data also the same thing can happen. But a service provider can actually provide, as Steve said and I have said, endpoint protections, encryptions. Today there are technologies available wherein if it is a cloud, if a particular space, there is actually a gateway, a road, which is only you using your organization's credentials can access. So there are several such technologies available. Some are expensive, some are not so expensive, but they come with their own features up and down. So if you were to take Oracle or AWS or Azure or something like that, you can be, I would say, some of these kind of service providers, you can be reasonably assured that they will have their own protection because they have their own reputation and brand to kind of work with. Smaller service providers don't deal with them on a too regular basis. To be honest, we use Oracle as our backend system. We have Azure as our cloud partner. So it depends on how you look at it, but I think you have to evaluate your vendor very closely. You can't go in this particular situation. I would request all my CFO friends, don't go for L1, don't go for the lowest. It's like, if you have seen the movie Apollo 13, when they are just about to take off, the guy says, the four of them are sitting around in the rocket about to take off. He says, how do you feel about sitting on X tons of fuel built by the cheapest vendor? It's exactly like that. How do you feel of dealing with the cheapest vendor because he's the lowest price from a service provider point of view, but you're going to give the entire data to them to manage? I will leave it at that.
And I'll try and be very short because this control thing, I've heard it before. I don't accept the control in the cloud is far greater. As long as your data is not encrypted, you're not in control. As long as people can wander around with something like this in your office, you're not in control. As long as you don't have strict privileges, access privileges to various people in your organization who can access various pockets of data, you're not in control. As long as there's a server in the corner of the room or someone else's data center, you're not in control. The cloud is far more effective at controlling your data on your behalf than I would argue any of the common on-premise systems you have today. So, personal view. And I realize I'm challenging your questioner, but I think she or he would find far better control and explore ideas on how they can better control what they have today and where their business is going tomorrow by having a quick chat with KPMG and Oracle this afternoon.
These are the times of uncertainty, and so many technological changes that are happening. CFOs are, they have to adopt to new technologies in this complex business environment, and B, they are worried about the ROIs. Because they're spending so much money on this, decision making becomes really difficult for them. So it's very liable for them to ask such questions, to have such concerns, and I think you both have answered them very nicely. And this brings us towards the end of this webinar. I know we have a lot of conversations coming from this webinar, and there are a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of conversations branching out from this webinar. So, but as we close, we would like short 1 or 2 minutes concluding remarks from both the speakers. So, Mr. Vaidyanathan and Mr. Cox, please, your last 1 to 2 minutes comment on this.
I think I'll let Arjun close, but my thoughts are, look, if you ask me when you should start this journey, if you haven't already started, if you're one of that small percentage that's waiting, you need to start now. And I think you need to work with technology partners and systems integrators that understand the challenges of business. They understand what you're going through. They can coach you through this process and make that move to the cloud, which is the right thing to do, as simple and easy as possible. It's all about innovation without disruption. Arjun.
Yes, kind of agree with the assessment what you have put in, Steve, but I would like to put it a little bit more straightforward. You are comfortable with Amazon delivery guy coming to the house and delivering whatever you're ordering when you're not there at home. When you have your wife or your mother or your children at home, you're comfortable with that. You're comfortable sitting in an Uber where you don't know anything antecedents or precedents of the driver. You're comfortable ordering food from food service providers who come and deliver, who come into your building, who have your mobile number. If you're comfortable with all that, I don't see a reason why you should not be comfortable with cloud.
Well said.
All right, sir. This has really been great. And on behalf of the participants and ETCFO team, I thank the speaker for sparing precious time and addressing the queries in this webinar. Many thanks, sir. I also want to thank the webinar attendees for their enthusiastic participation. Really, I mean, they have been active with us throughout. And if you have any queries unanswered, we will try our best to get them answered offline. So please don't be discouraged if your questions were not answered. Please stay connected, do subscribe and join ETCFO updates every day through our daily newsletter, specially designed for finance professionals. And always, always, always send us your thoughts, feedback, and requests. It really is your feedback that makes ETCFO tick. And many, many thanks. We hope to be back with another interesting topic soon. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Arjun.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.